Today, I speak up to share the truth, to inspire, and to serve. To share the truth around child sexual abuse, to speak up by sharing my story, and to serve, to be here for others who are facing the same walk so that they know that they are not alone. Half a day. I am Romecca Sawers. Before I take you on a journey, I would like to say from the bottom of my heart that you are here to receive a message that may be for yourself or someone you know. I will be reading from my notes. My first speech that I gave 4 years ago. Half a day, Todu Tautau. In my native language, Chamorro, into English, hello to all the people. Chamorro, a language that is spoken on a beautiful tropical island called Guam. Guam is a territory of the United States of America. This is a territory where a little girl was born. A little girl whose story I must share before I take you through mine. This little girl had beautiful long black hair, a smile so bright, skin so soft and golden brown. This little girl's mother was an alcoholic. She was weak to her husband's demands and abuse. A man who was a father, who was controlling and dominant. He was physically, mentally, and emotionally abusive. At the young, tender age of 13, this little girl gave birth to her father's child. Imagine the pain, the grief of loss of her innocence, her purity, and being consumed by fear. She was told to be ashamed of herself. She gave up her child for adoption and relief that out of sight, out of mind. My mother never gained healing or support from her trauma. My mother, who was the eldest of 17, had to protect her siblings. But one day, she had decided to leave. She met a man, got married, and escaped to the USA. She had a son, and she was beaten every time the cooking was not done, the shirts were not ironed, the bedding was not washed, the house was not cleaned. Back to Guam, this little girl flew. She fled despite the shame, the guilt of leaving her only child. The whispers in the village amongst relatives was what she came home to. In her second marriage, she had her other son. We'll call him Mick. She left that man, the father, to Mick. From the beginning, it was not a healthy relationship, so she decided to leave. She met another man and had another son. 2 years later, another man, a daughter named Romecca. Yes, that is me. Obviously, she was looking for love, but she struggled to know what love was. She struggled to maintain a relationship because she didn't know what a good relationship was. She did not tell of her pregnancy of Romecca and fell into another relationship with another man. With this man who became my stepfather, she had 2 other sons with. In this marriage, she had hope that it would be a lasting marriage. I was the middle child, the black sheep. Yes, I was stubborn, and I was the rebellious one. For me, the abuse started at 7 years old. At 7 years old, when my innocence, actually, it was when I was 5 years old. It was at 5 years old that my innocence was taken away. It was only last year in 2020 that I had, in 2019, that I had come to this revelation. I was abused by my stepfather, what seemed like every night. I remember laying there, face down, wrapping myself tightly in a blanket, hoping that it would go away, that he would go away, that it would all stop. I was always left feeling dirty, scared, sad, in fear, wishing someone would save me. Alone, I eventually cried myself to sleep, only to wake up the next morning like nothing had happened. It was as though I had a sign on my forehead that said, "Please, abuse me. I like being abused. I like being hurt. Take advantage of me. No one cares." I was abused by several men, several people who stayed with us. As a little girl, I had seen my mother drinking almost every weekend. I saw her yelling, hair pulling, knives pointed at throats, threatening to kill each other, the rage and the anger. My brothers and I did the same to each other because it was all that we knew. We never felt safe. We never felt as though anybody cared and anybody looked out for us. I was made to feel that my abuse was all my fault, that somehow I asked for it, that there must have been something I had done to make it happen. In my head, I would constantly think, what did I do wrong? My mother always told me that she never really ever wanted me, and that she only liked my brothers, and that she wished I was never born. Knowing that she only wanted boys, I wanted to fit in more, and I would dress up like my brothers, baggy pants, baggy shirt. Maybe then she would love me. Maybe then she would believe me. Maybe then she would accept me. I craved to be loved, accepted, and to belong. I wanted my mother's love. I wanted her to accept me. But I thought that maybe it was because of what was happening, or maybe it was because I was too ugly, or maybe it was because I was too fat. I wondered, what was it that made her hate me so much? When I was in middle school, friends had reported seeing marks on my body. They had reported it to my guidance counselor, who then called Child Protective Services. In doing this, I was taken away that day to their office, where shortly after, by late afternoon, I was exhausted. I was hungry. All I wanted to do was sleep. But in walked my mother and my stepfather. There was so much fear within my body. My eyes, I wondered, was I seeing things? I asked myself, I was screaming inside, why? Why were they here? Why would they let them come close to me? Why would they let them in here? I ended up staying at a family member's house. Eventually, I was told that I had to lie about my story. I had to lie about what I had reported, because if I didn't, I would be ruining my family. So the day that I was to go to court and to testify of what was happening to me, what had happened to me, that guilt placed over me that I needed to lie had caused me to shut down, to be quiet. It had silenced me to speak up and to even believe my own story, that it was the truth. A child, to have to bear that, a weight, a burden that caused me fear, wanting to hide and wishing I was dead. I was so afraid. And I thought that there is no hope, because here I was so close to being saved. And yet I was returned home with them, my abuser. Eventually, they sent me away to live overseas so that I was out of sight and out of mind. and I wasn't causing trouble anymore, so that my mother and my stepfather could carry on. No one was listening. No one heard what I was saying. No one believed me, and it caused me to feel like a liar. In my head, thoughts that I was a liar and that I had somehow asked for it, that it was my fault, that I was better off dead, caused me to spiral out of control. I got into fights at school. I self-harmed. I was screaming out for help, but nobody could hear. Nobody could understand the signs that I was giving out of cutting my arms, of getting into fights, of giving attitude, of going and smoking and doing things just to get attention, they said. They weren't getting it, that I was asking for help. I know today it is important to ask for help and to say it, to not send messages because people will not get it. In high school, I went through being bullied, severely bullied. I never felt like I belonged. I had bad grades. I couldn't concentrate. How could I? I was so scared of going home. I was so frightened about how tight I was going to have to hold the blanket over myself and how many times I would have to toss and turn in hope to get rid of them. But no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I tossed and turned and squealed, they got what they wanted and they did what they did. And the next morning, it was back to being like nothing had happened. In my mind, it caused me to feel like I was crazy, because how could they act like nothing happened, causing me to think that it was all in my head, that the squeezing of my legs together was all in my head. The pain I felt the next day was all in my head. The flashbacks, all in my head, that somehow I made it up. No one ever knew what was happening behind closed doors, because my mother was really great at smiling, acting like everything was okay, like it was normal. All I wanted was to be pretty. I wanted to be like the other girls. I wanted a mother who loved me. I wanted a father who was there, who would protect me. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be part of the popular crowd, because it seems like they all had a good life, like they had people around them who actually cared about them. I wanted to go to bed feeling safe. I didn't know anything different to what was happening at home. But somehow the other girls, the way they acted, made me think that maybe what was happening in my home was shameful. It was a secret. And if I tell anybody about it, I would get picked on. I would get teased. I would have stones, rocks thrown at me. I would go to jail. Fingers will be pointed at me. And I would just die. I was called all sorts of names, and I started to wear black. I wanted to hide behind the black. That somehow, if I hid behind all the black, I wouldn't stand out, that people would fear me, and that I wouldn't be the one who was afraid. I became anorexic from the age of 15. I was anorexic for 17 years, for 6 months. I lived off of gum and Coke. That's all that I had to survive. I was bulimic. And that I was bulimic for 15 years. That carried on until I was an adult, a mother, a wife. I was an alcoholic. I enjoyed drinking. I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. I thought somehow that it would numb the pain because I was hurting so much. But realistically, when I was drunk, I experienced the pain most. I wanted to escape reality because my nightmare was my reality. I never thought that a happy ending would be my ending. I never thought that those fairy tales of princesses meeting their princes would be a story I would ever be able to say I got to experience. All I wanted to do was die. I was angry and I screamed out many nights asking, why? Why me? What did I do to deserve this? I was covered in the shame. I was so ashamed of myself. How could I walk around thinking anybody would care when someone as dirty as I was? I felt guilty for not speaking up and defending myself. And I felt guilty that somehow I must have played a role in it because it happened. I was there. I asked myself, how could I let it happen to me? I became an alcoholic, yes, for 16 years. I could not control how I felt. I had no control. I felt no control of my life. I felt powerless. If I had no control of my body, of saying no, of saying stop. I had no power. I had no control. From the moment I picked up my first can of beer, I could not stop. I felt like I was another person, like I was braver somehow, like I was prettier, like I was stronger, like I was more fun. I was the life of the party. I loved it. I became addicted to it. I lived on it. I realized that there are so many moments of my life while I was drinking that I could have killed someone because of my driving behind the wheel while I was driving while I was drunk. When I was on drugs and I was drinking and I was driving, the many times that I tried to take my life, how close I came to the edge, how close I came to the vein, how close I came before they pumped my stomach. I did everything to sabotage my life because I felt unworthy, that I did not deserve anything good. Any man who came into my life who tried to be kind, I pushed them away and I went with those who abused me, those who took advantage of me. I led myself into situations where I was raped by several men. I was gang raped. I allowed my body to be used. I had no self-respect because how could I respect myself when I was never taught? I was never taught about boundaries and self-love. I sold my soul to the devil. At the age of 13, I was being bribed with money, which started out with candy at first, just so they could get what they wanted. Now remember, my mother didn't, at the time, I didn't see and think that she loved me. And so I wanted the money so I could buy myself the things that I wanted. Mostly it was food because I wanted to soothe the hurt that I was feeling. I was on that path of self-destruction. Unfortunately, I never cared about the groups I hung out with, and that carried on. I was suicidal for at least most of my teenage years, early adult years, when I was a mother. I did one day meet a Scottish man, a beautiful man, who showed me what it was like and what it looked like to love unconditionally, to be there for someone. I dragged this man through hell and back, I always say. It wasn't his fault. He didn't deserve the hurt that I had caused him. I begged him, please take me with you. And so he took me with him here to Australia, where I then begged him to marry me. I wanted to be married. I wanted to get rid of my last name. I wanted to change my identity. I wanted to hide the truth about my life and my past. I wanted to put on a mask and put on the finest of jewelries. I wanted to wear expensive clothes so that no one could find out who I truly was and where I had come from. I didn't realize that the baggage I had taken with me and it had followed me here. I didn't realize that because I had not unpacked it, that it stayed with me and that it impacted my life here in Australia as well. I could not move forward with that baggage of hurt, that baggage of shame, that baggage of guilt, that baggage that made me feel like I was not good enough, that baggage that caused me to shut up, to not speak, that baggage that caused me fear to speak out my truth, that baggage that caused me to believe that I needed to be someone else other than my true self. I carried it around with me, wore my mask, smiled, took on management positions, thinking that doing all these things would make it all better. I became a mother, of course, before I moved here to Australia. And my one dream, I did have one dream when I was a little girl. And in that one dream, it was to have a daughter. I desperately wanted to have a daughter that I would love, cherish, and protect, because then I would show her the love that I never got, that I would protect her from the hurt that was caused to me. But because I was an alcoholic and I was a drug addict, and my mind, my self-worth, my self-hate was so strong, my self-worth was so low, that this poor little girl and I didn't get to experience a beautiful start, because I wanted to go and continue to numb the pain. I didn't want her. I realized I didn't want to be her mother because I didn't want to cause her hurt. I didn't want to let her down. I knew that she deserved better. As her mother, as a mother, I realized that I was repeating the same cycle. I was repeating the same cycle that my mother had by not being there, by drinking, making excuses, causing the abuse to stop me. I was destroying my life. I was making bad choices, choices that were bad. And I say bad because they caused me to hurt. They caused suffering to those around me. I was in denial for so long. I was sabotaging my freedom. I was sabotaging my right to feel happy. All I really wanted deep down was to be free, but yet I was keeping myself bound by the chains, by the hurt of shame, the hurt that the child sexual abuse, by the hurt that my perpetrators had caused me. I was allowing that to keep me prisoner, to stop me from being free. causing me to get up every day only to pull myself down, to get held back by the lies that I was not good enough, that I was worthless, that I did not deserve anything good. I knew one day, I knew that something had to change. If I wanted to be the mother that I always wanted to be, I knew something had to change. I was gifted another blessing of a child, my son. I knew that if I wanted to protect them, I needed to heal. Because if I continued to do and function in the place of hurt, then I was only going to destroy their lives. Suicide, I could not contemplate it because I knew that what I wanted to protect them from, if I had taken my life, I would be the one who would cause them harm. I'm not saying that it all goes away, because it doesn't. But it is what I do when they come up that matters. I changed my choices, and I have been sober for 11 years. I have a healthy relationship with food and myself, my self-worth, my self-love. I make choices that are positive as much as I can. I am gentle with myself. I don't beat myself up when I have a hard day. I learn the lessons from my past of what I don't want to repeat, and that I don't want my abuse to be carried into the generations that I may not ever meet. But I know that the choices I choose today can impact their lives in a positive way as I make positive choices right here today. That the ripple effect from my one thought, my one choice, will ripple into their lives, and that it will be for good. Yes, I was abused, but I know that I have a choice. I have a choice to not let it define me and stop me from speaking up, from living my life in peace and joy, to fulfill my purpose, to live my life with passion and support others on their walk. I have chosen to speak up, to share my story, to change the stigmas in society, to speak up, to encourage others to know that they are not alone, to speak up and change the old ways that cause shame around child sexual abuse, around suicide. The reality is that child sexual abuse causes so much negative lifelong impacts in a person's life. It needs to stop. It needs to stop with us. Today, I have learned to drop the ego. Drop the ego that caused me to live in shame. The ego that caused me to think that I needed to put on the facade and act like I was better. To know that I am here to serve others, to love as I have been loved, to share the truth because it is time to heal, because the truth shall be told, because we can be free. And I want to encourage others who are out there who may feel alone. May you know that I believe you and that your story should be heard and that seeking support is important. I have gone through my path and my journey of healing for years. I have learned so many lessons. I have struggled. I have picked myself up again. I have learned to be gentle. I have learned to love. And I have learned what is important. I have learned how not to jump at anything that sounds too good to be true, because most of the time it is, especially when it comes to healing. I have learned to surrender to God because I don't know what's to come, but I can only walk in faith and trust that what is going to come will be good. I have seen where He has been in my life. And as I said, the many times I could have killed myself and the many times I could have hurt someone else, He was there. He turned a horrible situation. He turned my life of suffering into a life where I am free. I have accepted myself. I love myself. And I know that anything is possible. I have forgiven my mother. I have forgiven my predators. Most of all, I have forgiven myself. I have learned how to laugh, to play, to see the beauty in things, to experience joy, to be that mother that I always wanted to be that wife, and to be my true self. I am the founder of Meant to Rise, a charity that supports survivors of child sexual abuse. I am your good enough mentor, supporting others through their walk who want to feel good enough. I am also the host of Empowered Survivors TV, a YouTube channel TV show where we interview other survivors and experts and family members who want to share their stories and their tips so that others know that they are not alone, that there is hope, that there is a way out, and there are resources for anyone who needs support. I have written my book because I was abused, because I wanted to share my story to encourage others to know that they don't have to live in shame and that they are possible, that you are possible. I am also a contributing author in Mothers Making a Difference, which is a beautiful book compilation of mothers who share their story to support and inspire others who may be facing the same struggles. Today, I serve with a heart of gratitude to be alive, to know that I was saved and I have been loved so that I can be here to support and love others, to be my authentic self because I am good enough, to keep speaking up because it needs to be heard. Too many lives are lost to suicide after child sexual abuse. I have overcome diabetes. I suffer from fibromyalgia, but I have also overcome anorexia, addictions, and my abuse. I am an empowered survivor speaking up because it is time to heal. No more, no more, no more suffering. Please speak up. Say no more to child sexual abuse. If you are a survivor, we are listening. You can do it. I know you can. You are strong and you have already come so far. And I am proud of you. The abuse happened, but it is not going to stop you. Nothing will. Love and glitter. I'm Romecca Sawers, empowered speaker, truth speaker, empowered survivor, and your good enough mentor. Sharing our stories on Empowered Survivors TV and supporting those on the front line at Meant to Rise. We are all meant to rise. Thank you.